two teenage girls in love with the same boy.
He's playing the good girl and the bad girl against each other.
They would taunt each other on social media, push each other's buttons to the max.
You're letting the world know you're kind of just adding fuel to the fire.
Guaranteeing you, I'm no fucking murder you.
But their social media war would explode into the real world with devastating consequences.
These girls, the escalation of the anger was just incredible.
And investigators are left to unravel the truth behind a love triangle gone horribly wrong.
You wouldn't think something like this would ever happen.
What is your emergency? There's some people fighting out here, and there's a girl laying in the middle of the street, and I don't know what the hell's going on. And we need police out here now.
They're fighting. We gotta hurry up and get here, quick.
Sure, they're already on the way.
Officers are immediately dispatched to an address in a residential neighborhood in Pinellas Park, Florida.
It's a nice neighborhood. It's a working middle class neighborhood, so that was kind of out of place.
For a town that has just a little over 55,000 residents in it, we don't have violent crime on a regular basis.
When I pulled up at the scene, I saw kids, like high schoolers. Some guys yelling, and some of the girls are screaming, crying, and they're running from this area where this van was. I wasn't sure what we had at that point, and I walked up to the area.
I could see a green minivan that was stationary in the middle of the road, and there was a female that was laying on the ground, her feet were underneath the van, and there was a crowd of people around her. I didn't really know what was going on. I just saw that it was a young girl that was hurt.
As the officers get closer, they see the girl is in critical condition, bleeding from a chest wound.
She was unresponsive. She was having a hard time breathing.
She had a blank stare. She was not conscious. And that was a sad sight, just seeing her lay there.
While EMTs rush the victim to the nearest hospital, the officers secure the area. The first thing police learn is the name of their victim. 18-year-old high school senior, Sarah Ludeman.
Sarah Ludeman was a local girl, grew up here in Pinellas Park, single child, two great parents.
Her parents always wanted a baby. They couldn't have one. Then all of a sudden, along came Sarah. It was one of those miracles. So she was doted on quite a bit.
She was an only child. She was showered with love from her parents. She was smart, she excelled in athletics, she was involved in her church, and she was so innocent.
But in the fall of 2008, that all seemed to change when she met a popular 19-year-old named Josh Camacho.
Sarah's, an average girl, very much not his type, but what does he do? He zeroes in on Sarah, and he just went after her.
The two immediately formed a connection, even though Josh was the complete opposite of Sarah in almost every way.
He was the type of guy you absolutely do not want your daughter to date.
Josh, I think, tried to at least portray that image and live up to that if he could.
There were several photographs that he would post where he was, posing with his shirt off, smoking, gun in his hand, things of that nature.
Josh also had a reputation as a ladies' man.
I think Josh Camacho fancied himself as what you'd think of as a player.
He definitely had some experience in the world of dating with other women, where Sarah, counter to that, was a much different person, much more reserved.
Despite their differences, Josh made Sarah feel special in a way no one had before, and the teenager was smitten.
When you're a typical teenager, your hormones are going crazy. You're not thinking clearly.
They began communicating more frequently, and then things kind of escalated from there.
Soon the two were inseparable.
I think Sarah saw this as, her first true relationship.
Once Sarah started dating Josh, she was having the time of her life. Here's a guy telling her everything she wants to hear.
From that point on, Josh was all Sarah could think about.
She's a teenager. Sarah felt like Josh walked on water.
She fell for him. Sarah gave him her heart.
Now, she was clinging to life. While Sarah is rushed to the hospital, investigators are still working the crime scene.
When investigators start interviewing the friends, Sarah's friends are quick to say Sarah started dating Josh Camacho.
Coming up, investigators uncover a relationship filled with secrets and lies.
He had already had a child now with another woman.
And learn how social media sparked a vengeful rivalry.
The story starts taking on more and more layers.
EMTs have rushed teenager Sarah Ludeman to the hospital after Pinellas Park police found her bleeding in the street.
It was just pure chaos. Kids all over the place, running, yelling, crying, screaming.
In the emergency room, doctors assess Sarah's wounds.
Sarah was stabbed in the chest. She was stabbed twice. It was brutal.
She did suffer a stab wound to the upper left shoulder and then one directly over her heart. So certainly a serious life-threatening injury.
While surgeons work to treat Sarah's critical wounds, police at the scene are left trying to piece together what happened. Who would stab the 18-year-old high school student, and why?
We were looking for if there was any weapons used, what kind of stabbing. Was it a knife? Was it a blunt? What was it? You're looking everywhere for everything, but I could not see anything.
While questioning witnesses, including Sarah's friends, detectives learned that she had been dating a boy named Josh Camacho.
He was popular because of his weapons and his hard attitude. And I believe that's the only reason, is because people were more afraid of him.
The victim's parents arrived on scene, so we were trying to keep them calm. The family was very upset on the scene. I could feel for them as a father.
When I put myself into the place of Sarah's parents, their only daughter, stabbed, it's devastating. I mean, it destroyed them.
Once they're able to calm down, Sarah's parents tell police they've had concerns about their daughter's relationship with her boyfriend, Josh.
Sarah's parents, they were obviously apprehensive about this. They were familiar with Josh, at least as they learned more about him, still trying to protect her as a young, innocent girl. Sarah grew up in a very protective, safe environment. Her parents kept track of her. They, obviously monitored the things that she was doing.
Her parents say they tried to be supportive at first.
Mr. Ludeman did, I think, what most good dads would do when their daughter's dating someone they don't necessarily approve of. He kept that kid as close to him as he possibly could. He would take him to Rays games. He would invite them to hang out at the house. He wanted to make sure that he didn't chase his daughter away by chasing her boyfriend away.
But they had no idea how much power Josh had over their daughter until they started noticing changes in her behavior.
Joshua Camacho was pretty much her first true love, and I think that affected her and kind of changed her in a way because he became part of her life.
As Sarah begins to date Josh and fall in love with him, she begins becoming a different person. She begins not caring much about school as she used to. And he might feed her self-esteem, but he's changing her to become the way he is.
Sarah's parents felt Josh was a bad influence, so they pressed their daughter for more information about her new boyfriend. What they discovered gave them even more cause for concern.
During this time, he had already had a child now with another woman.
Her parents learned that when Sarah met Josh, he had a girlfriend who was pregnant with his baby.
Josh, a teenager, already has one child, and according to all the reports, he's not paying any money for that child.
Girls seem to go for the bad ones sometimes, and he was bad news.
After telling police what they know, Sarah's parents head to the hospital to be with their daughter. Meanwhile, her friends tell detectives that despite Josh's bad reputation as a player, Sarah was convinced she was the only woman in his life.
I don't know that Josh saw her as anything more than just maybe the next person that he was going to date, whereas Sarah, I think, saw it as more of a, hey, I just want to be with you type of thing and not anybody else.
Sarah was in love, and she wanted everyone to know. So she did what many teenagers do. She wrote about her feelings online.
Sarah posted one picture of her and Josh together, and she wrote a caption. So this tells me what? She had fallen for this guy, hook, line, and sinker.
She was saying, look at me, I'm with him. And as we all know, social media puts it out there for the world to see.
Sarah's friends say that's when she found out she wasn't the only woman in Josh's life.
Sarah's posting all these images of her and Josh on MySpace of them in love. And then she gets a message out of nowhere that says, wait a minute, I'm his girlfriend. Who the hell are you? Sarah had no idea that Josh was being unfaithful. And when she found out, it made her explode.
Coming up, as doctors fight to save Sarah's life, detectives learn the identity of her rival.
You keep playing fucking games, you're a pathetic little bitch. Honestly, what the fuck do you have that's going for you that Josh wants you over me for?
In Pinellas Park, Florida, high school senior Sarah Ludeman is being treated in the emergency room for multiple stab wounds to the chest. 6 months before the stabbing, Sarah discovered her boyfriend Josh Camacho was seeing another girl. Her name was Rachel Wade.
Once Sarah starts posting these pictures and these love captions on MySpace, Rachel sees that and says, wait a minute, I'm his girlfriend.
Like Sarah, 19-year-old Rachel Wade grew up in Pinellas Park.
Rachel Wade was your typical teenager, came from a middle-class, hardworking family, and really seemed to have it all.
Rachel was outgoing and very social, one of the cool kids in school.
She probably maybe had some of that bad girl persona about her.
Became a little rebellious, very independent, strong-willed.
Rachel took her teen rebellion farther than most girls, however. At 16, she moved out of her parents' house and dropped out of school. She started working at a local restaurant to support herself.
She worked full-time as a server there, and she had her own apartment, and she was pretty much independent.
She was kind of spreading her own wings and was doing her own thing, just becoming her own person at that point.
She seemed to have her pick of the boys in Pinellas Park, including Josh Camacho.
They had begun dating over the summer of 2008 and dated through the end of that winter.
So it came as a shock when Rachel saw the picture of Josh kissing Sarah on social media. According to her friends, Sarah confronted Josh about cheating with Rachel, but he denied it.
Sarah goes to Josh and says, "What is Rachel Wade, this girl, talking about? You're with her." Josh says, "Wait, baby. That's old news. That's been long over. Don't worry about it." And Sarah believed him.
And so you have now Josh in the middle of this where he's actually playing both sides of the coin.
It seemed like he was going back and forth at times with different girls that he had dated, in this case, Rachel and Sarah.
Sarah's friends tell police that she was scared of losing Josh, so she decided to trust him and put the whole thing behind her. That is, until Rachel started attacking her online.
You can be so much more brave on social media with your threats. You may not say that to someone face to face, but you certainly can threaten them on social media.
They would post things, photographs at the beach, things of that nature. Rachel began to attack those photographs almost in a cyberbullying capacity. So why would you wear that to the beach? You know, don't you know you look fat? Cruel things, clearly designed to hurt Sarah.
That's when the two girls started to compete for Josh's attention.
I certainly think that generated some rivalry between the two of them, where now not only did just the two of them know that they were kind of dating Josh back and forth, but now the whole world knew.
They were leaving pictures anytime they were with Camacho. They were taking pictures of them with him, almost like to show each other, like, look, I'm with him now, and, you know, I have him type of thing.
And Sarah's friends tell police that no one seemed to be enjoying it more than Josh.
Josh Camacho definitely played these girls off of each other. He would go with one day and take pictures with her, knowing she's gonna post these. But at the end of the day, he's telling Sarah, "Oh, I love you and I wanna be with you."
He drew some sort of joy out of being the center of attention, if you will, having two girls vying for his affection.
Surprisingly, neither Sarah nor Rachel seemed to blame Josh.
He is clearly the one that's not doing the right thing. But you have two girls that simply can't see that because love gets in the way.
Rivalry just seemed to be more out of jealousy, and it rose from that. They just continued to bicker, if you will, back and forth.
There was posting of pictures and things like that on the social media that was starting to basically build this fight.
But Rachel took their online rivalry one step further.
Hey, Sarah, it's Rachel. I'm on my way to the park.
Sarah's friends tell police that Rachel got Sarah's cell number and started leaving threatening voicemail messages. So Sarah decided to fight back by showing up at the restaurant where Rachel worked.
Sarah had gone with some of her girlfriends and sat in her section so that Rachel had to wait on her table to intentionally give her a hard time. Sarah and her friends sent the food back, made complaints about the service, and made it rough for Rachel.
Sarah didn't show up with Josh at Rachel's place of business, but enough to where Sarah would show up and maybe rub it into Rachel's face, you know, about, you know, hey, I'm the one dating him.
Not to be outdone, Rachel would then reciprocate.
Rachel was making sure that Sarah knew, either through text or maybe a phone conversation or whatnot, that she was dating Josh. Like, hey, look, he's spending the night with me tonight, or he's with me today. Each of them were, in essence, pushing each other's buttons.
Rachel is not the one to give up. And Sarah, who now found somebody that's interested in her, doesn't want to give up either. They both want to fight for that same bad boy.
Coming up, the investigators learn the details of the girls' final confrontation.
Everybody in the car overhears it. "I'm going to stab you and your Mexican boyfriend."
It lasted no more than maybe 10 seconds tops.
"18-year-old Sarah Ludeman was rushed to the hospital in critical condition as detectives are piecing together what happened. Witnesses describe the stabbing as the result of a bitter feud with 19-year-old Rachel Wade. Sarah's friends explained that the girls' online battle had reached a boiling point earlier that night, around 5 p.m.
I think it's a culmination of what's been happening for months. This evening, it seemed like, things came to a head. Sarah was with Joshua at his sister's house. They were hanging out, playing video games.
Sarah is trying to spend as much time with Josh as she can and trying to build her relationship with Josh.
Suddenly, Rachel started texting Josh.
Rachel was certainly trying to intervene. She was trying to pull Josh away from Sarah that night. She's trying to find out where he is and what he's up to, and will they be meeting up later, or will they be getting together anytime soon?
Sarah sees what's happening, and she's becoming more upset and more angry that what she thinks is Rachel interfering with her relationship with Josh, when really, it's Josh who is still feeding Rachel that relationship.
Sarah decided to end the night early and go cool off.
Josh left. He was heading home.
Just after 8:30 p.m., Sarah was on her way to a restaurant with Josh's sister and a friend when she got a call on her cell from Rachel.
Rachel was continuing that pressure. She wasn't giving up.
And this time, she took things to a whole new level.
Everybody in the car overhears the conversation. They're not paying attention to all the words, but one thing they do hear is, "I'm gonna stab you and your Mexican boyfriend."
Sarah, at this point, is now upset and is looking now to find Rachel. She is actually wanting to now go confront her. A friend of Sarah's had just happened to be on a main road that went in through the local neighborhood, happened to drive by a house where Rachel had been standing out in front of. And she had notified Sarah that she had just seen Rachel.
She knows the history between both Sarah and Rachel, and she's Sarah's best friend.
They now have an idea of where Rachel is. It's not a far drive, maybe within a half a mile at the most from each other.
Sarah got there within minutes.
Sarah pulls up in a van. She has friends with her. And this is where the confrontation begins.
Sarah stops the van pretty much just offset of the middle of the road in front of the house. And when she exits the van, she makes it to just in front of the van.
Sarah's friends say Rachel left the driveway and headed straight for Sarah. And that's when the two of them got into a fight.
It's more of hands flailing and hair kind of going everywhere, if you will. And it lasted no more than maybe 8 seconds, 10 seconds tops.
None of Sarah's friends can say exactly how she got stabbed, but they all agree Rachel was the one wielding the knife. But police still need more information to be sure, and Rachel is nowhere to be found.
Did she stab? Did she not stab? Maybe she wasn't the one that did the stabbing at that point. We were still trying to figure out everything that was going on and putting the pieces together.
While detectives are trying to locate their suspect, they get tragic news from the hospital. Sarah has died.
They obviously did what they could to try to stop the bleeding that she was suffering from. She did suffer a stab wound that actually penetrated her heart, and that was causing bleeding internally and ultimately was pronounced deceased there at the hospital.
Their assault case has suddenly become a murder investigation. Thankfully, one of the witnesses tells police they saw where their suspect ran after the stabbing.
That's how we basically was somebody saying, hey, that's one of the girls involved, or that's Rachel. She was sitting on this little bench at the front door.
She had a straight face, almost stoic. She took out a cigarette and began smoking it.
The way she sat there, so calm, and I don't think she really understood the seriousness of this whole thing.
I approached her and asked her about speaking to her about what had happened that evening.
Rachel agrees to come in for questioning. And what she tells investigators is shocking.
You know what happened to Sarah?
Coming up, Rachel tells detectives her side of the story.
She was bullying me. There was a lot of harassment, and it was pretty ongoing.
Pinellas Park police investigating the stabbing of Sarah Ludeman finally have a suspect, her bitter rival, Rachel Wade. And just hours after the murder, she goes in for questioning.
Okay, I want you to understand that right now you're not under arrest. Okay, you came back here voluntarily with us, and I appreciate that. Okay, but I would like to talk to you about this. In doing so, I want to read you your rights. Okay, have you had them read to you before?
She described to me how she had been dating Josh. We went back through some of that background.
So it's you and Josh?
Yeah, me and Josh. I've known him forever.
Josh Camacho, right?
Yeah. I've known him since like elementary school, and we ended up dating starting, I don't know, like June or July of last year.
She described these confrontational messages or conversations that she had been having with Sarah off and on.
She started with me to begin with.
So she started with you, mean causing problems?
Somehow got my phone number, started calling me, started harassing me. She made like probably a threat every couple weeks. She'll either private call me or send me an email.
She even says that Sarah threatened to kill her.
She was going to beat my ass, but she was going to kill me because I was with him and she wasn't allowed to have him.
Rachel admits to threatening Sarah, but only as an attempt to get her to back off.
I did feel like she was bullying me. There was a lot of harassment, and it was pretty ongoing.
As for their fight earlier that night, Rachel acknowledges that it happened. But she didn't see what happened after that.
You know what happened to Sarah? How do you think Sarah ended up getting stabbed?
I really don't know. We were all down there, but I don't know.
She stabbed. She stabbed. How do you think she got stabbed?
I don't know.
She's kind of beating around the bush. She doesn't mention a knife. She doesn't mention the stabbing. She just acts like, I'm the victim here. These girls pulled up. I came out, and this is what happened. I don't know what happened.
But detectives aren't buying it, so they put the pressure on, telling Rachel they had multiple witnesses who saw her go after Sarah with a knife.
So I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell me again the truth this time about the thing with the knife, okay? Where did you bring it from home?
I got it from home.
Okay, what kind of knife is it?
It's a regular kitchen knife.
She indicated to me that she had been carrying the knife or had the knife out of protection.
She tells police, I was afraid for my life. I thought Sarah's friends and Sarah were gonna jump me.
She had called me and told me that would be the night that she would find me. And pretty much that she was going to fight me that night, and it was not just her. She wouldn't be alone.
Rachel says she had gone to a friend's house out of fear for her safety, and that's when Sarah and her friends pulled up.
I was sick of the harassment, the drama, and I didn't know if it would stop it or not, but it just seemed like that's all she wanted from me.
She claims that Sarah started the fight, and she was just defending herself.
I don't remember a whole lot of it. I do know that my first intention was to scare them.
You had the knife in your hand. How do you think that blade came in contact with her? You said she was...
I was just swinging at her. I just had it and I was swinging at her. She kept hitting me and I just started swinging back.
With the knife?
With both hands.
Okay.
But police have to wonder, if Rachel was so scared of Sarah and her friends, why did she confront them?
This person is in fear of someone attacking her. I guess I would have expected that person to act differently. I would have expected them to have either run into the house for safety. I would have expected them to jump into her car, which was there, and leave the scene, or perhaps pick up a phone and call 911. It was about halfway through that conversation with Rachel that I disclosed to her that Sarah had died as a result of her injuries.
She died as a result of these stab wounds that she had.
I didn't know what any of this happened. I just wanted them to finally leave me alone.
When I told her that, she was in complete disbelief. She broke down. I think in her own mind, Rachel thought that she had maybe just injured her, but I don't think that she ever thought that it would have ever reached the point of death.
After I realized that there was blood on the knife and Sarah had walked away, I didn't know how bad the injuries were.
Rachel tells police she didn't know what to do with the knife and panicked.
At that point, I was scared because I didn't know who I had harmed or how bad it was. So I threw the knife in the back area of the house.
Rachel had thrown it on a neighboring roof of a house that was next door and had disposed of the knife that way.
It isn't the reaction police expect from a cold-blooded killer. Could Rachel be telling the truth? Had Sarah been the one trying to take out her rival, only to have the tables turned? Investigators decide to talk to the object of both girls' desire, Josh Camacho.
Having interviewed Josh, I never got the impression from him that there was any remorse on his part.
I think he encouraged the girls to go ahead and, show me how important am I to you.
This is the guy that they're fighting over? No one understood what was it about him.
Rachel started putting stuff on MySpace. She said, because you're mine. That's what she always said. That's what they do. They put stuff on MySpace so the other one would get mad, even if it's not true.
Okay, why would Sarah go to this house and look for a fight?
I don't know. I told Sarah not to go.
I was told by Rachel that you were encouraging her to fight Sarah if you loved her, to fight with her. Is that true?
That's a lie. That's a lie.
Based on witness testimony and Rachel's own statement, investigators have enough to place her under arrest.
At that point, it was very clear there was more than sufficient evidence for a second-degree murder charge.
Coming up, Rachel takes the stand in her own defense. But when new evidence is revealed, will the jury believe her?
We get these voice messages. You can't even believe this.
I'm going to show you psycho. You're fucking with the wrong person.
On July 21st, 2010, 19-year-old Rachel Wade's trial begins. She's charged with the second-degree murder of high school student Sarah Ludeman. In the months since her arrest, the case has become a media sensation.
I think part of the reason this case got a lot of attention is because you're dealing with two young girls. And a girl murdering another girl over a boy, that's just something you just don't hear about.
Prosecutors argue that Rachel was a jealous ex who was willing to do anything to get rid of her rival and win back her boyfriend. So when Sarah and her friends tracked Rachel down, she seized the opportunity.
Rachel had that knife and ran out into the street to confront Sarah in the middle of the road. That's a far cry from, I'm doing this out of defense, as a last resort.
She had to walk and cross in front of the vehicle and go towards Sarah.
Rachel's actions afterward only strengthened their theory.
Someone who defends themselves, they don't get rid of a knife. Why, right?
She didn't drop it in the street. She didn't carry it with her. She took the knife and intentionally threw it onto the roof of a neighbor's house.
Basically, she knows that if she gets caught with a weapon, that she's going to go to jail.
Prosecutors have also obtained voicemails from Sarah's phone.
Half of them would be described as antagonistic. They were confrontational. They were downright derogatory, demeaning towards Sarah.
Honestly, what the fuck do you have that's going for you that Josh wants you over me for? Not to mention that I look probably 10 times fucking better than you. I'm gonna show you psycho. Keep fucking with me. You're fucking with the wrong person, and you're fucking with the one thing that I care about.
But one voicemail in particular makes an impression on the jury.
Seriously, I told you to watch the fucking back and not to fucking chill with him. Now your ass is mine, and I'm guaranteeing you I'm gonna fucking murder you, and I'm gonna fucking kill you. I swear on my life.
That was a voicemail that she left for Sarah 7.5 months before she ultimately did murder her. Sarah thought that threat was significant enough to all the voicemails she gets to save it.
How do you escape that fact? How do you say, well, those threats, they don't matter? How often do you have someone say, I'm gonna effing murder you. And they end up doing it.
Rachel's attorney feels otherwise. While there is no question Rachel stabbed Sarah, they insist prosecutors haven't come close to proving intent.
Sarah came to Rachel. Rachel did not go to Sarah. Then you have them whipping around and pulling up. Again, you have Rachel standing there somewhere where she's invited to be. Sarah is not invited to be there. And Sarah is jumping out, going at Rachel. So I think any person in that situation would be like, this person's coming after me. She is going to kill me or hurt me very, very seriously.
The self-defense law in Florida had recently changed to stand your ground. So you have a right, if you're in a place that you're legally allowed to be, you have a right to stand your ground and meet force with force.
Rachel, she should have probably not had a knife, but how do you tell her that when 3 girls are charging at her, all bigger than her, and she has no idea if they have something?
Physically, between the two, Sarah was certainly taller. Rachel was not very big at all. And that was something that the defense obviously brought to the jury's attention in this case.
As for the threatening messages on Sarah's phone, Rachel's attorneys argued they'd been nothing more than empty threats made between 2 angry girls.
Is Rachel reacting back? Of course she is. Of course she's yelling back on the phone. Of course she's saying nasty things to them.
To try and convince the jury, Rachel takes the stand in her own defense.
My attorney actually gave me the opportunity. He told me prior that he thought that it might be a good thing. And I did agree. I thought it would be best if I said it because coming from me, I just think that's the only way it was going to come out.
One of the first questions I asked her was, did you lie to the detective? She said no. What do you mean you didn't lie to the detective? Did you even ever mention the knife? No. Didn't he have to confront you with the evidence so you would actually tell him the truth? So she lied under oath in front of the jury.
There was a lot of inconsistent statements. The story kept evolving over time, and that's never an indicator of innocence, typically. She did not do well, in my opinion.
Nobody forced her to call and say, I'm gonna murder you. Why would you do that if you're scared of somebody?
It would be up to the jury to decide. On July 23, 2010, they returned with their verdict.
And if the defense would please rise.
We, the jury, find as follows: ask that the defendant in this case. The defendant is guilty of murder in the 2nd degree as charged. So say we all.
Rachel was crying, but Sarah Ludeman's parents did not believe her for a second, and I honestly feel that the jury did not either because of that voicemail where Rachel threatened to kill Sarah. Looking at the jury's face after they heard that voicemail, you knew that was the nail in the coffin.
All rise.
Rachel is sentenced to 27 years in prison.
I think I was somewhat prepared for it. Maybe not so much my sentencing, but my verdict. I'd seen the pictures of the wound. And hearing my own voice and everything, putting it together, I don't know how I would feel on the opposite end.
For Sarah's family, the sentence isn't harsh enough.
She could have gotten life in prison. Those who loved Sarah Ludeman absolutely will tell you that justice was not served.
And it had all started because of teenage love scorned.
Here's a boy that walks into their life and everything unravels, and you have 2 families that are destroyed forever.
He had dated both of these girls, but he wasn't there at the time of the murder. He wasn't the one that caused the murder. It was Rachel's actions that caused the murder.
Rachel took it to that next level that you can't go back from. Once you're there, you're done, and now she's paying the ultimate price.